Hey everyone, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, that website address for you is theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I have one of our most popular guests, Patrick Stone, on. He also happens to be a clinical trials guru producer, and I'll tell you more about what that means later in case you're interested at the end of this episode. Pat is a former FDA auditor, and that's interesting in and of itself, and he's actually written a book about that. You want to hold it up, Pat? It's called Bubblegum Badge, an FDA History. And Bubblegum Badge, I know what it means, and it's definitely catchy. You want to just tell people what that means?
Yeah, sure. So it's definitely not derogatory toward the agency. I have no animosity. I love my FDA counterparts. I have some of my best friends still there at the agency. I don't talk to them about shop or anything anymore. But, what it means is the FDA's authority to actually do something about, like when the compounding pharmacy had issues, they couldn't really mandate that they make a recall. Because they don't have the legal authority to do so. They have to rely on the state or another government agency. So they have a lot of oversight authority, but very little regulatory authority teeth. So I call it Bubblegum Badge, and because of that fact. And we talk about it internally at FDA that after it took them 100 years to get the authority to mandate and for food and for food substances, they have authority now to say, hey, you have to recall this product. It's causing issues. That was with the Food Modernization Act, and that passed, I believe, in 2011. The new Food Act, and so, but they still don't have the authority for drugs, biologics, and these type of devices. They kind of have to ask nicely, hey, institution, can you please get a recall going for this product? It's causing harm or people are dying. So that's basically in a nutshell what the Bubblegum Badge portion of that, the title, means.
Yeah, it's very catchy, and Pat now, for the last 2 years, so happy anniversary was recently, has been doing consulting, and he's been doing very well. I mean, if you follow him on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, he's all over the place, all over the world, and just in France recently. And so we will discuss how to get in touch with Pat later if you would like to. Today's video is going to be, we're going to talk about electronic monitoring in clinical trials, and this relates to CRAs. Monitors, as we call them, they're the people from the CROs or the sponsors that kind of audit the clinics. They're not from the FDA itself, they're from the drug companies. And in the past, and even now, I mean, in the present day, monitors come to the clinic. They actually physically come, and they will go through the books and the charts and all that stuff, and then they will leave. We've done videos on that, numerous videos on that on the blog, so just search it. In fact, Pat and I just wrapped up an interview where we discuss overworked monitors. There's a new FDA guidance regarding electronic monitoring and how this can potentially save some time, save some money, make the whole monitoring process more efficient, and Pat is going to talk to us about that.
Sure. So the guidance is called Computerized Systems Used in Clinical Investigations, and it was released for public comment around 2007, 2008, and it's now finalized, after they issued it in 2011. And basically what they're giving the expectations of monitoring a clinical trial, and with the advent of pushing most hospitals into e-patient systems, so where all of the patient's records and data, they're all on an electronic format. Now what they're saying is, okay, so now you have the electronic patient data, Now you have an electronic case report form, and so what's stopping sponsors or monitors from remotely auditing and reviewing these data systems, as opposed to showing up every couple of months, or once a month, or once a quarter, or what have you? Most clinical trials have a pretty steady monitoring plan where they'll go in, at least 2 or 3 times a quarter. Now, the FDA is saying in this guidance, hey, we never told you that you have to run people around and you have to do all this legwork and you have to be flying everyone from here to there. Now, there are some snags. There are some issues, okay? Not every hospital system wants to grant access to a monitor of all the patient history or all the patient records. So there is a little bit of a snag that will hopefully be wrinkled. This wrinkle will be ironed out for monitors so that this does become a reality for them, because sponsors and CROs are still kind of ingrained and stuck in the notion that you have to have this major frequency for your monitoring activities. Now, once these trials go completely electronic, whereas you have the regulatory binder is available, it's either scanned or electronic in some format. The case report forms are now electronic, and now the patient records are all electronic.
Yes.
You have the perfect recipe for a remote viewing, so that overworked and traveled monitor can now do a portion of the audit or all of their audit remotely. Now, you're always going to have to go to the site. I mean, you got to initiate the site, you got to close out the site. Maybe you need to do a quality assurance review on the monitoring aspects, because a lot of times they'll send me in to do a mock FDA audit, and that's their quality assurance audit. So I'm not only looking at the clinical trial data from the clinic's perspective, but I'm also looking at how the monitor did their job and if they missed anything, or if, and more often than not, I'm finding issues where the monitor glazed over this or skipped that, or they didn't review these primary efficacy data points. They don't match, and these are major issues that could possibly be mitigated by a computer system that kind of does some of the legwork for the monitor, saying, hey, these two inputs don't match up. The source data doesn't match the the case report form data, and this is mainly the monitor's job, is connecting the dots, but they also have other major job functions that aren't connecting the dots, like prohibitive medication, concomitant medication, drug interactions, missed adverse events, just understanding the disease state for the clinical trial is a difficult task. And so basically what this guidance is telling you is FDA wants to give you current thinking, current talking points, and they're telling you straight up, hey, we never told you to do it this way. Yes, we said to do it, but you can do it however you want, and there is no one way to do it.
Right. So
they're basically opening up the box for thinking outside of the box. That way you're not stuck in the same old thing. Because if it's not working, and it really, I would say, 40%, around there, you're still having issues with monitors, or monitors are a big part of the problem at a clinic site, because they're missing something or they're not catching the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we have discussed this fact. Now, the electronic monitoring, is this actually happening anywhere that you know of?
Yes, 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 yes. There are a handful of sponsors that they have their own. They don't contract a CRO to do the work for them, and so when you have a smaller workforce, you can't have them traveling as much, and that's why most sponsors use a CRO, is because they have limited people doing this work. Right. Most of the people are QA people, and they can't. QA and monitoring are totally separate, and they can't be combined. So there are a few out there that are, I would say, the medium to small businesses. This is more helpful to them if they have an all electronic clinical trial, because then they won't have to pay those hotel fees, airplane fees,
travel and all that,
lost baggage fees, whatever it is they're paying.
Mm-hmm.
That all goes away with the electronic review system.
So this is going on now in certain instances. For the majority of trials are still monitored the traditional way. But in your opinion, do you think this will be increasing, this electronic monitoring?
Well, as most sponsors migrate from paper documents to electronic documents, this will definitely become a normal thing. It's right now, it's kind of in its infancy,
right?
Because FDA just barely said, "Hey, we never told you this is how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You guys followed a model and a path that was laid out before you, and you just went with it.
Yeah,
you didn't change it up at all." But because I believe it was President Bush or even Clinton who started with the hospital electronic documents, where they were pushing, they weren't mandating, where they're mandated now, but
yes,
they were pushing them closer and closer. Because I remember MD Anderson, one of my favorite customers, they went all electronic in like 2000. So they're ahead of the game.
Very early.
For most, right. They mean, when they were pushed to do this, they said, fine, we can't store all these documents. We're losing money with these storage fees, and we're killing all these trees. So they had a lot of different reasons why they wanted to migrate to electronic from paper. But you have a lot of the larger hospital systems, and even some of the medium-sized clinics, they're completely electronic. Now, now their focus is going to have to be on, how do I tailor the review for the monitor or for the sponsor,
yes,
to where I only give them the data from this clinical trial, and maybe the supporting data, like to help inclusion and exclusion criteria type, because FDA always wants to see that the patient met inclusion, or that they have the disease state, and that you didn't give a heart patient a kidney patient's drug. So there's always going to have to be that little bit of background history that has to be reviewed. But for the most part, the information can be easily segregated. The IT staff at the hospital can do this, but it's a matter of, do they want to? I mean, it costs money and this and that. But the fact that they don't have to deal with a monitor on site, they don't have to lose time shuffling records or patient documents.
Right.
It's really a win-win for the clinic and for the monitor. I mean, it really is.
It really seems like it. And there was about 5 years, when I first entered this industry from the site level, about 8 years ago now, the change from paper-based CRFs to electronic CRFs was just happening. So I started seeing every year less paper CRFs and more eCRFs, and now it's just about every study is eCRF. So this is like the natural evolution of that. Now, I have interviewed some people, Anna Marquez being one. She's fantastic as far as her knowledge on sites and SMOs, because she runs a few. The initial cost is a lot because you have to scan all these things, the time investment it takes. Apparently some monitors request that lots of documents be scanned and emailed. because she has had some experience with this. So they're still working out some of the kinks, and it may be costly, maybe costlier now for some sites as far as time, because someone's going to have to be scanning these things and emailing them. But I think once we get everything scanned, it becomes a lot easier. And so there might be some resistance from the sites because they're used to doing things a certain way. But ultimately, I think it benefits everyone, like you say. And we'll really keep an eye on this and see how it goes, because we have not had any electronic monitoring yet at my research clinics. So we'll see. Even the studies this year that haven't started yet, they're going to be regular traditional monitor visits. So we'll definitely keep an eye on this and, of course, report it to you guys. Now, Pat, I do want to give a shout out to my Clinical Trial Guru producers, you being one of them. That's Sarah Elizabeth Siegler, Resolve Research Solutions, Accurate Clinical Trials, Erdhart Clinical Trials, PTNR, Patrick Stone. We have Darshan Kulkarni, Biopharm Systems, Zymewire, Mozio, South Coast Clinical Trials, Breakthrough Clinical Trials, and St. Paul Medical Research Center in Miami, Florida. And if you want to get a hold of Pat, maybe you need some consulting help, you have questions, Google Patrick Stone. And if you want the book, Bubblegum Badge, I highly recommend it. You'll learn a whole lot about this industry from an FDA's perspective. There's nothing out there like this. So check that out. And Pat, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on and clarifying this topic with me and my audience today.
Thank you for your time, and thank your audience for their time, and I appreciate their support.
Thank you, Pat. And if you want to be a Clinical Trial Guru producer, anyone watching out there, it's $99 lifetime membership. I'm only accepting $100, and that's it for life. So let me know, Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Otherwise, hope you enjoy and take care, Pat.
Thank you.